The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is at the end of the age, and the reapers are the angels. An explanation of a parable from Jesus is rare. And it's not like Jesus to make things so simple for us that we don't have to discern for ourselves a deeper meaning. And today's gospel is no different. And I think we have to be careful that we don't miss the key message in this gospel reading. In the broadest sense, and taking Jesus literally, the sower is God, the field is the field of creation with the oceans and the fish, the wildlife and the plants, the sun, the moon, the stars, Adam and Eve. And in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, it says, "Indeed, it was very good." Here we could say that the seed was light, peace, harmony, joy, innocence, life itself. It was a good seed, and the harvest would be eternal life. But along came Satan, who hated God, and his total ambition was to destroy the plan of God because it promised a happiness that he had refused. So he tempted Adam and Eve to disobey. Satan succeeded in planting weeds in the field of God's creation. And the word for weed used in the Bible was called darnel. And the similarity between this wheat is so great that in some regions of the world, darnel is referred to as false wheat. In other words, the difference to the untrained eye is not obvious. Here we could say that the bad seed was darkness, war, disharmony, hate, guilt, and of course pride. Sound familiar? To humanity, this weed is called suffering. And God's words to Adam and Eve were, "Cursed be the soil because of you. In toil you shall eat its yield all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to you as you eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your face shall you get bread to eat, for you are dirt, and to dirt you shall return." Genesis chapter 3. In understanding how these words of God apply to us, we can narrow the definition of field from creation to country to city to church, and ultimately to that of our own soul. Each one of us is a field of God, the ground that he works, the people he plants his seeds in, the plants he nurtures, the people he rests his hopes upon. And all of this is very important, but I don't believe it's the main message of today's gospel. I think the main message is contained in the master's instructions to his servants regarding the handling of the crop once those weeds were discovered. Paraphrasing, it would go something like this: don't do anything. Don't try and pick out the weeds, because if you do, you're going to wreck the whole crop. You're going to end up pulling up the wheat as well as the weeds, no matter how careful you are. Leave it to me. The weeds will be burned at the time of harvest, and the wheat will be stored in the granary of heaven. Remember, the difference to the untrained eye is not obvious. So why is Jesus telling us this? Well, short and simple, Jesus does not want us to judge. While we might be right in judgment because we don't know or understand God's overall plan, we might end up doing it wrong. Instead, we are to wait And Jesus is saying, leave it to me. Wait for the time that I have set. I have the trained eye. And it's hard to wait. It's hard to understand, especially when we see such terrible things happening around the world, around our country, our city, and even our church. But God tells us to mainly to plant and to not pluck, remembering that the difference is not as obvious as perhaps we think. We are called to recognize evil and to name it, and to pray to God that He will take care of it, much as the farmer told his servants in the parable. But most of all, we are told to do good instead of evil, to bless instead of curse, to praise instead of criticize, to help instead of ignore, to love instead of hate, to forgive instead of resent, and to tell truth instead of lies. God does have a plan that we are unable to discern with our limited human wisdom. So, is there a benefit to us in God allowing these weeds in His field? I think we should be very grateful that God waits a while and that He tells His servants to hold back, because at times we can all be weeds. I know for sure that I've been a weed in the past, that some things that I have done or failed to do were more of the devil than they were of God. So knowing that, and knowing that what God has done and can do with us when we let Him, I'm rather content to have the weeding put off to the end. How often have we been a weed in God's garden? God's mercy allows evil to exist so that the good might grow. He allows evil to exist because so many times He can turn it into good. He turns death into life. But there may be someone in our lives that choose not to accept our advice or our correction. All our attempts to get this person straight have failed. But Jesus is saying to us, no, I don't want you to pull up that weed. That can get messy. I want you to leave it to me. Are we willing to obey, and instead of doing something potentially destructive, we simply tell Jesus that we can't get through to this person and leave this person in His hands? Alexander Solzhenitsyn, the Russian novelist and historian, once said, "If there were only evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil runs through the heart of every human being." The point here is that God in His wisdom allows the subjects of the kingdom and the subjects of the devil to grow side by side. And it's because He knows there will come a time of separation, a moment of judgment, but it will be His judgment, not ours. But in the interim, while this side-by-side growth is going on, there is hope, there is mercy, and there is forgiveness, because God awaits the repentant sinner.